welcome back to Leandra the TBR Zero. It is that time of the month where I discuss what I intend to read in the coming weeks. Since April is just around the corner, I thought I would get a jump start on it, and it's actually pretty exciting because in the months previous, I really haven't had much leeway in which books I choose to pick up, mainly because I've had pre-orders that I've had to prioritize, and that's because one of my personal rules in trying to get my TBR to zero is that if I do receive a pre-order, then I have to read it within the month that it comes in the mail. And I do have a few pre-orders that I'm going to have to prioritize this month, but I think that I can throw in a few fun reads at random since there aren't any readathons or other obligatory book club choices that I have to prioritize. So to make this a bit more fun, I've decided to take out a TBR inspiration jar that I have created. And yes, this is a diced tomato jar originally that I've repurposed for TBR suggestions. Now inside you can see there's a whole bunch of slips of paper, and the requirements that are on them range from maybe the size of the book to what's on the cover, what's inside the book, whether it be a certain trope or genre choice. And I thought this could be a great way to make sure that I'm still diversifying what I read and making me dig deep into what I do have on my TBR shelves that maybe I've been overlooking for too long. So hopefully though, a few of these options end up coinciding with a few pre-orders that I have to read, because I really don't want to push myself as much as I have in the past 3 months, where I've had, say, 7+ books on my TBR, especially since this month it's been quite difficult playing catch up from the books I wasn't able to finish in February. And I don't want to get into that snowball effect where I just, eventually will never be able to fulfill the TBR list that I've made. So let's just get into it, and along the way, I'll let you know if any of them fit one of the pre-orders that I have to read this month anyway. Okay, I'm actually a little bit nervous because when I created the requirements on these slips of paper, it was back in January when I created this channel, and I have already forgotten what I may have placed in this jar. So it is going to be as much of a surprise to you all as it is to me. And I also am hoping to only pull out 6 pieces of paper because, like I said in my introduction, I don't want to overwhelm myself with what the TBR list ends up being for this month. So let's just see how it goes. My first pick is on its way. Ooh, oh my gosh, okay. I'm actually really pleased with this one. So it says, "Scare me if you can read it," and that is perfect. It really is. One of my pre-orders that I recently received was Manhunt by Gretchen Felker Martin, and I don't know, it says it's a modern horror masterpiece, and the person who said that was Carmen Maria Machado, who's the author of Her Body and Other Parties, as well as a few other titles, and I loved her writing, so I'm really excited to read this one. I believe that it is trans representation in here. I may be wrong though. I know that it definitely supports LGBT plus characters, but it seems like it's a little bit dystopian and definitely very eerie because what seems to be the 2 main characters, Beth and Fran, they spend their days traveling the ravaged New England coast, hunting feral men and harvesting their organs in a gruesome effort to ensure they'll never face the same fate. And I'm just like, I want to go in as blind as I can with this one because I think that'll up the scare factor. But if we just look at the cheeky, kind of gross but amazing cover, I am just so pumped for this one. So yeah, so thank goodness that my first slip of paper from the Jovial jar of diced tomatoes gave me Scare Me. Okay, we're on the right track. How about we go for pick number 2? Ooh, this one might be hard. Sibling Protags. So Sibling Protagonists. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to take some time to think about that one. I'll be back. So I'm back, and this is for Sibling Protagonists. And I've settled on a conspiracy in Belgravia. And this is the second book in the Lady Sherlock series. And wow, I can't believe that I finally have an excuse to pick up the second book in this series, because we follow Charlotte Holmes, who is, if you don't know anything about this series, it is a retelling of Sherlock Holmes in which Sherlock Holmes is actually a woman who's disguising as a man because of how society works back then. But Charlotte Holmes is our detective, and I remember from the first book that her sister played a pretty heavy role, and I believe she also was one of the POVs we read from. And in the back cover, we see that Livia, the sister, is mentioned in regards to that it says in the meanwhile, so all these other things are happening that I'm not going to tell you, Charlotte wrestles with a surprising proposal of marriage. A mysterious stranger woos her sister Livia, and an unidentified body surfaces where least expected. So a lot of stuff is happening, and I believe that Livia is probably going to be one of the protagonists whose perspective we follow, since that happened in the first book. And so this fulfills my second slip of paper, which is Sibling Protagonists. Yes! Okay, on for pick number 3. Oh my gosh! Okay, so this one, I forgot that I did this. The paper says something Kate would like, which is one of my good friends from childhood, and she's a really big reading buff when it comes to mysteries, though she just read Clara and the Sun and enjoyed that one and thought that was interesting. So now I'm like, oh no, I don't know what she might like. She and I originally connected over mysteries, so I'm going to go on a limb and choose one of the other books that I'm required to read for this month, and that is going to be 8 Faces at 3 by Craig Rice. Now, this is a book that wasn't even a pre-order. I just have really poor willpower, especially when it comes to the American Mystery Classics series that are published by Penzler Publishing. And this is a classic mystery, and I believe, I'm not sure if this is, oh yeah, so it's the first novel in Rice's John J. Malone series, which I love it when I just happen to pick up a book that's the first in a mystery series, especially because mysteries, you tend to, it doesn't really matter if you read them in order, but I like to do that anyway. So this one is really fascinating because Malone, who is the detective of this story, is actually a defender of the guilty, so I'm assuming he's like a defense attorney. And it says that he's notorious for getting his clients off who are actually guilty, but apparently this is a bit of a change in pace for him because he believes that his new client is actually innocent. So now this person, Hannah, I believe her name is, no, her name is Holly Englehart, apparently. She has been framed for the murder. And so now Malone has to put on a different hat than he's used to, trying to genuinely prove her innocence. So I'm really excited about this. And the reason why I splurged and bought it, even though it's not a pre-order, is because the Mysterious Bookshop based in New York City, they do a Zoom book club in which there's a new title from this collection that they discuss every month, and I believe this one is the choice for April, but it's like April 3rd, so this is probably gonna have to be the first book I choose, and I'm very excited about it. Okay, book number 4. This is going really well, I think, so far. I haven't had any weird ones, and I'm a bit nervous I'm going to jinx myself. Oh, okay, this is interesting. College setting. Oh my goodness. I think the reason why I put this one on here is because you know how hard it is to find a book that's a college setting? I think it's because it's one of the hardest settings to write, since your college years are so strange, and yeah, you're on the edge of young adulthood and adulthood. I guess that's why like new adult books exist, you know, in the past like 10-15 years. But yeah, so now that I've discussed my interest when it comes to the college setting, give me a moment and I'm gonna find which book fits that. Hey everyone, this is Leandra again, and this is just your mid-video reminder to like and subscribe if you're really enjoying the video so far, and consider ringing that bell because then you'll be notified when other videos like this are posted. So yeah, thank you everyone. I hope you enjoy the last half of the video. Bye! I'm a little disappointed because I couldn't find, upon first, perusing of my shelves, a book that actually is set in a college setting. So I have a few that are like prep schools or private schools, but nothing that's college, which is crazy, but also understandable because of how fascinating I find that setting to be. I usually end up devouring those books pretty quickly after I buy them. For instance, I'm going to give you a few recommendations in case you are interested in knowing which books have college settings, and I'm only going to list the ones that I've read, obviously, but we've got Sally Rooney's Normal People, obviously, is another choice. That's pretty good. We've got
another choice. The first choice I gave you.
But another one is Donna Tartt's The Secret History. Now that one's dark academia. I loved that book. Some people don't think it's for them, but yeah, I really adored the kind of eerie mystery. It's not really a whodunit, but it's more of a how done it and why done it, because we already know who the victim is before he's actually murdered. So it's crazy. But another one that also kind of goes along with that dark academia type of setting is Bunny by Mona Awad. Now that one isn't during undergrad, it's during a master's program, but there's some speculative fiction in there, and it's definitely a wild ride. There's a lot of bunnies, and there's a lot of axes, and there's some gore that you're gonna have to go through, but I thought it was probably one of the most fun reads that I had read the year I had read it. So those are some 3, recommendations for you if you're looking for something on your shelf, and they're all pretty big titles, so the likelihood that you would have one of them on your TBR shelves already is pretty high. But with that said, for me, because I don't want to spend too long trying to go through my shelves, I'm just going to pick again, and I'm going to slip this bad boy back into the jar so that hopefully if I pick it again, I'll have already found a book that actually is college setting. Another book recommendation that I've already thought of is On Beauty by Zadie Smith. That's also college setting, and it's really interesting, especially if you're interested in how the United States deals with affirmative action. I don't think that her version of it is, the universal kind of idea, since it was very different at my college, but it is interesting to see her perspective on it. Okay, let's see how it goes. Ooh, okay, this is very broad. I like it, and it is historical fiction. Oh boy, okay, so I like that it's broad, but I'm also like, oh shoot, this is kind of nerve-wracking. So just give me a moment again, and then I'll be back when I find the book of my choice. I'm back, and I have chosen for my historical fiction to be Calvino's Invisible Cities. Now, Italo Calvino is known for his speculative metafiction writing. I think he is probably the poster boy for postmodern writing, and I don't think I cheated that much because there are historical figures in his book, but because it's so speculative and kind of crazy, I don't know, I'm hoping that there's some truth to what he is writing. But the reason why I chose this book is because I already have to read it, since I just remembered I actually chose to do a buddy read with one of my friends who is a fellow bookstagrammer. Her name is Shona or Shauna.
It's hard to know when you've never actually physically spoken to the person and you're just reading their name every day,
but her handle is Shona's Books, and she is so wonderful in how active her responses are whenever we discuss something. If I post anything, she always has some interesting perspective to add to it. And we got talking about Calvino, especially after I believe I had posted If on a Winter's Night a Traveler, how it was one of my favorite books of the year when I had read it. And she said that she's been meaning to read more of him. And I thought, well, this is great because I already own this one. Let's do it in April. And so I'm going to buddy read this one with her in April. And so I may be cheating a little bit, but I'm going to count it as my historical fiction choice so that I'm keeping my TBR quite small-ish. And all these books are actually kind of short, so I'm thrilled about that too. Okay, next pick from the jar. Let's see what it is. Oh! This is so pleasant. So it might be hard to read this one because it's also in cursive and it's very tiny, but it says a delightful cover. Look at me, just a delightful cover. Okay, let's see what I may end up choosing for this one. All right, now for a delightful cover, because it's so broad and I still want to read more nonfiction this year, I ended up going a little, out in left field choosing this one, but it really is a delightful cover once you see it. It is John Muir's Travels in Alaska, and I'll put it closer to the screen, but look at that. It's a really nice cover and edition, and this is a Gibbs Smith edition. I absolutely love this publisher, and I own, I think, 4 John Muir books, and I've never read them, but I'm extremely excited to read them because he is a well-known naturalist and environmentalist. His books cover predominantly the United States frontier, and I am just really looking forward to diving into him, especially since, as you may know from past videos, when I read nonfiction, they tend to be environmentalist in theme or have some type of nature writing going for them. And so I'm really pleased. I think this counts for a delightful cover. I don't know about you. So anyway, yeah, I am choosing John Muir's Travels in Alaska as one of my reads for April. But yeah, let's do a little roundup because I've decided I'm done. Okay, I'm going to do a quick wrap-up of the books that I intend to read for April. I don't remember what order I ended up pulling these pieces of paper from, but let's just rattle them off quick. Now, for Scare Me was one of the prompts, and I chose Manhunt by Gretchen Felker Martin. Super excited about this. LGBT plus representation. It's got horror, which is another genre I want to try more of, and it's one of my pre-orders, so checking a lot of boxes off. Next read is going to be A Conspiracy in Belgravia, and this is by Sherry Thomas. It is the second installation of her Lady Sherlock series, and I chose this because it fits the Siblings Protagonist prompt that I pulled from my jar. All right, the next book that I have to read for April is 8 Faces at 3 by Craig Rice. This is the first book in his Detective Malone series. I'm super pumped because it does go along with my goal of joining the Mysterious Bookshops book club at the beginning of April. So this is going to be probably the first read I choose to pick up. And if I remember correctly, oh yeah, it was something Kate would like. So something that one of my good friends would appreciate and enjoy reading. So hopefully this ends up being a good pick. The next book that I ended up finding on my TBR shelves is Invisible Cities by Italo Calvino. It is a translation from the original Italian, and I'm counting it as my historical fiction prompt. The reason why I ended up choosing it, I don't think I went into detail, but we've got Kublai Khan, we've got Marco Polo, and I think that while it includes historical figures, counting for historical fiction, it also has a lot of speculative fiction going for it, since Calvino is known for being a postmodernist writer. And I am fortunate that I ended up being able to read this book for April thanks to a buddy read opportunity with one of my Bookstagram friends, Shona's Books. And if anyone is interested in being friends on Bookstagram and supporting one another's reading goals, then my Instagram handle is greatgraydays_book reviews, and I'll put it right down here so that everyone can see that. Now, the final book that I ended up choosing through prompts, but not the final book of the month, is John Muir's Travels in Alaska. Now, this is a nonfiction nature writing book, and it counts for my delightful cover prompt, which I ended up picking as well. Super pumped. This counts as one of my nonfiction goals for the year, as well as I believe it counts for one of my 22 books in 2022 writing spread that is in my bullet journal. If you're interested in seeing what my reading journal looks like and what my process is when it comes to filling it out, then you can check out my channel. I have a bunch of videos that I've posted on it, and I'll even include a few of them in the description below. And finally, the 6th book that I intend to include in my April TBR is actually Headed for a Hearse by Jonathan Latimer. Now, this is a book that I pre-ordered through my subscription with the Mysterious Bookshop in New York City, and it is a part of the American Mystery Classics that's presented by Otto Penzler through Penzler Publishers. And yeah, it's a monthly subscription where I get the new release from this collection every month. I'm super excited about it. It actually fits perfectly with the other Penzler publishing book that I chose, what was it called? The 8 Faces at 3 by Craig Rice. And I don't know how this works. Fate is just on my side, because this is yet another book that involves a frame-up job in which someone's been framed for a crime they didn't commit, and the detective has to prove their innocence. So I probably will end up doing some type of reading vlog with those 2 books, but I'm really excited, and I'm just grateful that I only have 6 books on my TBR, and most of them are pretty short, I'd say, or pretty doable, about this length. So 200 to 300 pages, doable. Especially compared to the month I'm coming off of, which is March, and I got a week as of making this video to finish my books in March, and boy oh boy am I cutting it close. But anyway, thank you everyone for joining me during this TBR reveal game. If you had a lot of fun and you think that I should continue using my diced tomatoes jar to decide my TBR, then please let me know in the comments. If you had fun watching, give the video a like and consider subscribing and ringing that bell so that you'll be one of the first to know when another video like this pops up. So yeah, thanks for spending some of your day with me, guys, and happy reading. Bye everyone!